You are listening to Option A or B with your Chris Canada. Welcome to Option A or B, where informal barbershop-like anything-goes debating topics gets mixed with some formal parliamentary-like debating structure.
Yo, what up? And welcome to the best podcasting platform that lets everyday people debate pretty much anything of all time. If you have Skype and you have a frenemy you'd like to challenge, then sign up on optionaorb.com. And if you don't know what a frenemy is, then you better Google that. This debate here is definitely a friendly discourse among enemies, so it should be a lot of fun. So without further ado, let's do this. Joe Montana is a quarterback from the National Football League who played the majority of his career with the San Francisco 49ers. While with the 49ers, Joe Montana was a 4-time Super Bowl champion with 3 Super Bowl Most Valuable Player awards. Over the course of his career, he would go on to win many other awards, put up some amazing stats, and is believed by many to be the best quarterback of all time. Tom Brady is a current National Football League quarterback who has spent his entire playing career with the New England Patriots. Like Joe Montana, Tom Brady is also a 4-time Super Bowl champion and also has 3 Super Bowl Most Valuable Player awards. Though Tom Brady is still currently playing football, with the success he's already had in his career, many people are starting to say that he is now the best quarterback of all time. And that brings us here for Option A or B debate. The contention. Tom Brady's career is already greater than Joe Montana's career. And Option A, who is in agreement with the contention that Tom Brady's career is greater than Joe Montana's career, is a man by, what is your name, sir?
My name's Darren.
Darren. And Darren, where are you from?
I'm from, believe it or not, Boston, Massachusetts, but I'm coming to you live right now from Washington, D.C.
Nice. And so being from Boston, I'm sure you have no bias in this conversation.
None whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a very objective and very logical and rational sense on this topic.
Absolutely.
And so then being from Boston and living in D.C., Darren, what makes you qualified to debate this topic?
Well, I've had a front row seat to Brady's career as a lifelong Patriots fan. Not only that, I'm a former sports writer. Not only have I been in NFL locker rooms, I also know the business of the league. I have a pretty unique perspective because I think a lot of times what happens with people who think that Tom Brady isn't the greatest quarterback of all time is that they're addicted to this idea of recency bias, which basically says that the fact that an individual is in the league now and that they're obviously great, but they can't be compared to the greats of the league and of different industries is a bias against that individual just because they're still active and they're still going. And I just think that's just a categorically false, weird way to look at the world. And especially to look at sports. So I have a lot to say, and I'm sure we'll get more into that when my opponent inevitably starts spewing his argument against one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, if not the best.
Yeah, well, very fair enough. Thank you for saying that, Darren. And Option B, who is in disagreement that Tom Brady's career is greater than Joe Montana's career, is a man by, what is your name, sir?
My name is Shawn Hardie. Some of you may know me as William H. Straff.
Okay, and Shawn Hardie or William H. Straff, what would you prefer I call you in this debate?
You can call me Shawn. That's what my mother calls me.
Okay, I'm going to call you Shawn. Man, Shawn, where are you from, man?
I'm from the Bronx, New York. Happens.
Nice. And I'll have to bleep that out, which is perfectly fine because that's how it gets down on Option A or B debate. And,
that's not the first bleep, and it ain't going to be the last.
And Shawn, what makes you qualified to debate this topic?
Well, I am a huge fan of football. I watch a lot of football, and I actually study football to understand how it works and what makes teams great and not great, because there's a lot of clowns out here who think they understand football and they really have no idea.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very true. Football is a very complicated sport to completely understand. And so you sometimes, the more proficient you are in the game, you can kind of start to see which people are not as proficient in the game. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing this dialogue here. Let me take you guys through the rules and then we'll get started. So you're in a 4-round debate. In round 1 and round 2, Shawn and Darren will speak uninterrupted. Darren will go first as option A always leads off. Option B follows and goes second. And then in the 3rd round, they have head-to-head. They have the ability to converse with one another. And then in the 4th round, they will have their closing arguments. And just like any debate, they need to make points of information that make their case. So basically, a point of information means a logical point that ladders up to their overall opinion. So be looking forward to those things while we're having this debate today. So let's get things started. Option A, you are in agreement that Tom Brady's career is greater than Joe Montana's career. Darren, go for it.
Well, thanks, Chris, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm a big fan of the podcast.
Thank you.
And so it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm already having fun. What I will say about Tom Brady is that he has had one of the most improbable careers in NFL history. What I mean by improbable is basically that this was a guy who was drafted in essentially the last round of the draft in 2000. He was an afterthought in an offense being led by Drew Bledsoe in his second season. And he steps in the middle of that season, 2001, and leads a team to the Super Bowl that was not supposed to be there. They beat the St. Louis Rams, who are one of the offensive juggernauts of modern football. Not only was his career improbable with starting off with that Super Bowl victory, he has had more longevity than Montana. This is a guy who only in a couple months is going to be 39 years old. By the time Montana was 39, he was basically out of the league. The frequency of Brady's appearances, appearances not only in the league championship game, but in the Super Bowl. We have 4 Super Bowls that he's won, and he's been in 6. So you couple all of that with quite frankly, Montana had a certain luxury, and that luxury's name is Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice, for the uneducated or the uninitiated, is simply the greatest possession and deep threat wide receiver of all time. Not only was he around for basically the entirety of Montana's career, Brady has had only probably 1, maybe 2 Hall of Fame receivers over the course of his career. And so when you take all of that, the improbability of his career, the longevity, the frequency of his appearances in championship games, and the fact that he's done more with much less than Montana had over the entirety of his career, I think there's no question that although Montana is a Hall of Fame quarterback, there's no real comparison, for one of the simple reasons being that Brady is a guy who next year could be the MVP of the league and no one would bat an eye. By the time Montana was 39, he was literally out of the league. He'd gone to Kansas City. He was an afterthought. They barely made the playoffs. So I just think there's a problem when we try to characterize Brady's career as less than Montana's, when Montana, quite frankly, hasn't had, and I'll close with this, but by the time he got to Kansas City, he was an afterthought. And at this point in time, Brady is going to be probably the league MVP next year. He's going to lead the league in every statistical category, probably be top 3 at top 5 at worst. So I just don't buy this argument. I'm interested to hear what my opponent actually has to say.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Thank you. And now we will move to option B. Shawn, you're in disagreement that Tom Brady's career is greater than Joe Montana's career. Go for it, sir.
Okay, those stats meant nothing to you, America, and I'm clear. Before I begin, I'll just give the audience a heads up. I'm going to make this argument without using 2 words. And those words rhyme with fly hate and deplate fate. And why? Because I don't need to use them. Also, even though I was born, raised, and live in New York City, I'm not biased against Mr. Brady at all because, don't worry, I'm not a fan of the silly-ass Jets. nor am I a Giants fan still shouting out my Super Bowl rings from 5 years ago. What I will say is that my opponent today, Mr. Sands, is a troll, plain and simple. And there's one thing that trolls lack when it comes to debates and arguments, and that's this little thing that we smart people like to call context. Context is the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. Now, I didn't make that up. That came straight from the dictionaries. That's what context is. So it's easy to look at the numbers and the career and just say that Brady is better because he's played longer or because he has more completions or more yards or more touchdowns, etc. Excuse me. However, when you apply context, you'll see that Tom Brady's career isn't better than Joe Montana's career because Joe played in the era where A, teams just did not pass as much as they do now, and B, passing was way harder than it is now. Back then, there were far less penalties for roughing the passer. No one got called for roughing the passer for quote-unquote leading with your head and with the crown of your helmet or a blow to the head or a low blow on a quarterback, which started from Brady, by the way, or aiming, or you had to telling defensive end, you have to aim for the strike zone or illegal contact on wide receiver or defenseless receiver and all this other crap. Quarterbacks and wide receivers in the 80s and 90s got beat the hell up. If you don't believe me, you can pause this podcast right now, go to YouTube, look up Joe Montana, Leonard Hamilton. If that play happened today, that whoever made that hit would be like thrown out of the league. Yet, with all those things, Joe still managed to lead the league in completion percentage 5 times, whereas Mr. Brady has only led the league in completion percentage once. And again, this is in an era where it's harder to pass. In 1989, Joe's completion percentage was 70.2%, which is the sixth highest completion percentage in a season of all time. Meanwhile, Mr. Brady's highest completion percentage in 2007 was 68.9%. Joe's career QB rating is 92.3, which is 11th all time. But when he retired, he was either first or second of all time. And to reiterate my point about how it was harder to pass then, 8 of the 10 guys in front of him now, when it comes to QB rating, played a down in 2015. And the 9th guy was Kurt Warner, who retired about 3 years ago. Montana had 11.9 yards per completion, while Brady has 11.7 yards per completion. He has a higher yards per attempt, 7.5 to 7.4. While obviously 0.1 is not that much, remember, this is in the era where it's harder to pass. Joe's a 3-time Super Bowl MVP. Tom Brady's a 3-time Super Bowl MVP. They both won the Super Bowl 4 times, which is an amazing accomplishment, and I wouldn't take that away from Tom Brady. However, Joe Montana was 4-0 in Super Bowls. 4-0. Meanwhile, Tom Brady was 4-2 in Super Bowls. And if it weren't for the dumbest play call in the history of the Super Bowl, I'm sorry, Ken, I had to bring this up, he would be 3-3. And in those Super Bowls, Joe Montana threw 11 touchdowns and no interceptions, while Tom Brady, while he threw 13 touchdowns, threw 4 interceptions. And he has a 62.7% completion percentage in the playoffs, which is higher than Mr. Brady's 62.4% completion percentage. Again, and this is all these stats are in the era where teams did not pass as much and the rules did not allow you to pass as much as you did now. Because it was hard to pass, that's when Mr. Sands says things like Montana was retired when he was 39. Listen, there's no way Tom Brady could have played till he was 39 back then because he would have because of the rules that didn't allow it. And maybe if Montana played in under these soft ass rules today, he could play to 39 or 40 years old. Since we live in a generation where a lot of you define success by rings, let's look at what I said about the Super Bowls. He has the Super Bowls that Tom Brady has. So if Tom Brady is Kobe Bryant, then Joe Montana is Tim Duncan. And guess what? Kobe Bryant did not have a better career than Tim Duncan, and Tom Brady did not have a better career than Joe Montana.
Boom. I see what these guys basically just came out swinging like this is Holyfield Tyson. This was a much anticipated match. These guys have been trying to get this match set for a while, similar to how it was for the Holyfield Tyson matches back in the 90s. Let's get back into round 2. Mr. Sands, your option A. Please go for it, sir.
All right. So I have a couple problems with this argument about context. Okay, this idea that the league was different then. Okay, we're not talking about freaking Bark Star here. Okay, this is not a generation ago. Okay, Jerry Rice played in the same league that Tom Brady played in. Let's be serious here. Okay, this is not the 1950s, bro. You kidding me? The hits? You're talking about hits? Yeah, what's happened is essentially they had to change the rules, slightly on some of these low hits, on, protocols on tackling, with leading with your helmet. All that stuff is like minor when it comes to sort of talking about this idea of who are great players. Okay. Richard Sherman is going to go down as a great cornerback in this league. He would have been a freaking great quarterback in the 80s, bro. Like, are you kidding me? It's about skill. The NFL is about skill. If you are a skilled player, if you are an upper echelon player at an upper echelon position, you will always be a player who could have played in any generation. I don't understand and you're acting like Montana put up his numbers in the 60s. Or 70s. He did this in the 80s and 90s. And by the way, we're not in 2030, bro. Brady started his career in 2001. So you're making this gulf between their careers seem like it's some like broad thing, some like philosophically, ideologically, we have to like adjust the numbers. And then you proceeded to spew a bunch of numbers. Okay, great. Anyway, my point is that you're talking about elite players that have played in the NFL. Both of them are elite. Mike Lombardi has this great analogy where he talks about blue chips and red chips. They're both blue chip players. Okay? The comparison is about who's had more accuracy, more leadership, more wins, and who's been more consistent. That's the bottom line. And I touched on all of this. If you're talking about longevity, Brady has a true chance, and this is not an exaggeration. He has a true chance and opportunity to play till he's 45 years old. Okay, think about that. That has nothing to do with rules. That has to do with his skill, the team that they've put around him, his accuracy, getting rid of the ball, not getting hit, his leadership, wanting players to play with him, getting players to buy in, being a leader, being a good huddled guy, being consistent, knowing how to manipulate other teams' defenses. This is all stuff that Montana had the ability to do as well. But the point of my argument is that Brady's done it on a higher level. I just don't buy this idea that this was a generation ago. No, yeah, it was. They were basically, and 50 years from now, what I truly believe is that they're going to look at their careers concurrently. That's just what I believe. That's my argument. I don't think we're going to be looking back and saying, well, Brady played in one generation and then Montana was a completely different. I just don't buy that at all. And what I will say is that, and to close, I don't think that you can discount the fact that he led his team to 6 Super Bowls and lost in 2 of them. It is not easy to get to the Super Bowl. There's only 2 teams there every year. And he lost to the same team twice, obviously both devastating losses. But you can't sit there and say, well, he got to the Super Bowl and he lost, so he's not great. No, I just don't buy that. So that's my address.
Okay. Shawn, William A. Straff, Mr. Hardie, your option B. I'm going to let you go now. Just go for it, sir.
Okay, so the fact that my opponent thinks that Joe Montana's prime, you could say it was from 84 to 89. Actually, I'll say even through 90, because that was his last year at San Francisco, and he was a consistent starter around 83. Whereas I think we would say that Tom Brady's prime happened around 2007. One could say that he's in his prime now. So let's say it's from 2007 when he started lighting the world on fire through now. If my opponent believes that football in 1985 was played the same way as it is in 2015, then you might as well just turn this machine off and everyone just take their free T-shirt and go home. Like, so
Darren, be quiet, man.
That's like saying Isaiah. That's like saying that basketball in the 80s and basketball in the 2000s are the same because Isaiah Thomas and Grant Hill had an overlap one year. Like it's ridiculous. Like whether you want to deny it or not, the fact that you could roll up on a quarterback's knees, the fact that you could hit a quarterback in the head, the fact that you could hit him anywhere. It's easy to stay in the pocket and process information when you have all day to throw. And Tom has all day to throw because he doesn't have to worry about his knees getting rolled up on. You know why? Because the last time his knees got rolled up on, the league created a rule that said you couldn't do that anymore. But I digress. So I don't say that Brady is not a bad quarterback. Is he one of the best of all time? Absolutely. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Absolutely. However, for me, it's less of, when I look at Brady's success, it's less about Brady. Well, Brady is a major component, but to me, it's more about Bill Belichick. And I say that because Tom Brady was a game manager for his first couple of years. And those first 3 Super Bowls, he was a game manager. And people don't like to admit this. And, the term game manager has this horrible connotation. But that's who he was. If you go back and look at his game logs, there's a lot of 17 for 28 for 200 and 209 yards and a touchdown games. He really wasn't really asked to do all that much. But then Belichick decides to shift the offense, and it's a credit to Tom that, he shifted. He thought that Tom could carry more of the load. But if Brady continued his career with those numbers, he would be all right. He would probably be considered one of the greats because of the Super Bowls, but he wouldn't be in that upper echelon. He wouldn't be in that same category as the guys like Joe Montana. Like basically, if he continues his pedestrian career, pedestrian is a harsh word, but he becomes Terry Bradshaw. Good numbers, solid, won Super Bowls, Hall of Famer, can't complain. But Terry Bradshaw ain't Joe Montana. And my second point is Tom Brady, and to piggyback on what I was saying about Belichick, to me, Tom Brady is more system dependent than Joe Montana is. See, what my opponent said earlier is that he was an afterthought in Kansas City when Joe Montana got to Kansas City. Joe Montana went to Kansas City, and they were in the AFC title game that same year in 1993 with Marty Schottenheimer as their head coach, who was freaking Captain Death when it comes to the NFL playoffs, who found more ways to lose playoff games than any other coach I know. And guess what? Contrary to popular belief, or at least Darren's belief, Jerry Rice didn't follow him to Kansas City. His receivers were Willie Davis, J.J. Burden, and something called Kimball Anders. Montana leaves San Francisco, leaves Bill Walsh, goes to Kansas City, and is literally one game away from the Super Bowl, and they lost to the Bills, who went to the Super Bowl 4 times, who history has now shown that they're a much better team than people realized. Meanwhile, when Brady gets injured in 2008 in the first play, when, they changed the rules after he got rolled up on his knees, Belichick puts in Matt Castle, and they go 10-6, and actually were one of the rare 10-6 teams to miss the playoffs. And Matt Castle
went 11-5, actually.
Oh, even better. If they went 11-5, thank you very much. And Matt Castle has been a dumpster fire everywhere he's gone ever since. Maybe as great as Tom Brady is, listen, what if he keeps Matt Castle? Maybe, I don't know what's going, what happens. I would say that it's for Brady, Mr. Sands for some reason, just doesn't think that rule changes can affect how teams play professional sports. In 2000 and after 2006, that was when the NFL instituted illegal contact. So basically, you couldn't touch a receiver at the 5 yards at all. It's no surprise that when that rule gets put in, that Brady's stats improve. Because from 2001 to 2006, he completes 1,895 passes for 3,061 yards for a 61.9% completion percentage. He passed for almost 22,000 yards of 147 touchdowns and 78 interceptions. If you look at Brady from 2010 to 2015, he's completed over 2,200 passes. He's completed over 2,200 passes, 3,500 attempts. His completion percentage jumps to 63.8%. 27,000 yards passing, 203 touchdowns, and 51 interceptions. It's a lot easier to throw the damn football when they throw a flag for breathing on you as a quarterback in today's league. Last point I'll make here, Mr. Sands brought up that Montana had Jerry Rice. And obviously Jerry Rice is one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. Don't dispute that. Tom Brady has the most unstoppable motherfucker you have ever seen put on a uniform on offense that's not a quarterback. And his name is Rob Gronkowski. And let's not mention that he has some guy named Randy Moss. Now, I ain't going to say that Randy Moss is better than Jerry Rice. However, if you have Randy Moss, you probably should be doing really, 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 really well. So, with all that said, it's not that Brady's a bum or that Brady hasn't had a great career, because he's had an awesome career. His career is just not better than Joe's. And it's no surprise that Brady's Hall of Fame seasons, the 2007 to now, came, all these crazy seasons that everyone remembers him for, came when Moss and Gronk are involved.
Okay, so that's a perfect transition. I know option B is frothing at the bit, which was said by one of the original option A debaters, Jay from DC. So, Darren, I'm going to let you start off the head-to-head round, but Shawn, just now know that you can chime in whenever you so please. So, Darren, option A, you agree that Tom Brady's career is better than Joe Montana. Darren, go for it.
I'm all in, man, and I didn't know we could get help from the moderator on facts. So
I mean, if I hear a
it's okay.
If I hear a stat that's incorrect, I'll correct it.
That's egregious. Yeah, I get you. Basically, there's a couple of things over the course of Shawn's argument that really make me think that I shouldn't even be debating this individual. You talk about Brady being system dependent. Okay, first of all, that whole statement, system dependent, is like a cliche that assumes that every NFL team is not running a system. They're all running systems.
Yes, they're all running systems.
They're running systems that the coaches implement and that the quarterbacks that they execute. So this idea that, a quarterback is running a system and he's dependent on the system is like an asinine thing.
No, I'm saying that his success is attributed more to the system and the coach that he plays for more than Joe Montana. And I say that because Joe Montana went from the most offensively oriented system in the league, playing under Bill Walsh, to one of the most conservative ass systems in the league in Marty Schottenheimer, and literally they were a step away from the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that Brady could not have survived any other system. All I'm saying is I ain't seen it.
Okay, so I mean, the system that Montana was under is the West Coast offense. I mean, so you want me to say you want to say that he was bound by the limits of the West Coast offense? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
I didn't say he was bound by anything.
But if I was going to make your argument, the inverse of my argument,
you could never make my argument because you're not good at it. But that's neither here nor there.
Okay, so all I'm saying is that every quarterback runs a system. So you can't hold it against Montana that he was a product of the West Coast offense. Everyone's running a system.
I'm not holding that against Montana.
You're holding it against Brady.
No, what I'm saying is I don't. Well, hey, listen.
You held it against Brady that he's running a system that the coach implemented and that he executed. I mean, I think that's pretty.
I'm not necessarily holding.
Pretty tough.
You know what's funny? See, you're saying I'm holding against him. I'm just stating the facts is that we've only seen him successful as one guy, whereas we've seen this guy be successful in two places. But here's a question I'd ask you, and I would ask also to the listeners. Because this whole scandal, which I'm not going to name, is going. The scandal that I'm not going to name that's going on now. If Brady doesn't get his way, he will be suspended for 4 games. If you had to choose between Brady getting suspended for 4 games or Belichick getting suspended for 4 games, who would you pick?
Are you serious?
Because
this is a serious question.
Because I think most people would say, well, obviously we'd rather, we like Brady, but we'd rather have we'd rather keep Belichick.
No, so
because you know why? Because half of you Boston people are saying like, well, Brady gets suspended, we got Garoppolo, he'll be fine. Why will he be fine? Because it's Belichick.
No,
we did we had Matt Castle 10 years ago, whatever.
No.
Meanwhile,
Patriots fans don't think like that.
Meanwhile,
no one would choose choose Belichick to be coaching on the sidelines to have Brady over Brady being not in the game. No Patriots fan would choose that.
So you'd rather. Okay, that's funny because
the players play the game.
That's funny because I bet you've asked the New Orleans Saints who they would chose, Breeze or Sean Payton that same year. I bet you they say Sean Payton.
Not if the other option is an unproven second-year quarterback.
Everyone's back was for a reason.
Kidding me?
But there's a lot of head-scratching moments from Mr. Brady. There's a lot of head-scratching moments from Mr. Brady. First of all, we haven't discussed the fact that this dude was a quarterback with a team that scored 14 points in the Super Bowl with an 18-0 team with a Hall of Famer Randy Moss that was an 18-0 team that scored the most points ever in a game, in a season, excuse me. And then against a defense, they scored 35 points against 5 weeks ago, and they scored 14 points. Then there was in 2010 when they were playing the Jets, and they played the Jets, and they beat them 45-3. And then 6 weeks later, they played them. They scored 21 points.
Giants were a great defense. They played an amazing.
Not the second time. They were 20th in defense. So what happened that time?
I mean, you just brought up the first time, so I'm addressing it. But
when you scored 35 in that great defense the first time, what happened? It's the same team. Well, they all get HGH, huh? You're talking about.
You're talking. So here's my problem, Shawn. You're talking about how you're this great historian of football, and then you're bringing up these anecdotal examples.
I just said he has a lot of head scratching. I just said he has a lot of head scratching.
Let me finish.
You asked me a question.
I let you finish. Let me finish. You're basically.
You lost two Super Bowls where he was favored. You lost 2 Super Bowls where he was favored.
You're the black Bill Walsh. You're a New York City fan who's a Ravens fan, and you're one of the great. You watch film on as your leisure time. I get it. So why are you bringing up anecdotal examples from specific games where the other team played a great game and, there's a thing called probability in NFL games where not everything that you can do in one game you can do in another. So why would you bring that up as evidence that Brady's not great?
I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question.
I'm asking you a legitimate question.
I simply said Tom Brady has had a lot of head-scratching moments, and I don't think you could say the same for Joe Montana.
So I'm scratching my head as to why you're calling his numbers pedestrian.
Huh?
Huh?
Oh, because I told you, there's a lot of, if you look at before 2007 and after 2007, his numbers are way up. But if you look at before 2007, if you look at his first couple of years in the league, he has so many games where it's like 26 or 40 for like 220 yards and 1 touchdown. So it's pedestrian. They're game manager numbers. And listen, my favorite team, as you mentioned, the Ravens, we won a Super Bowl with a game manager at quarterback. So I don't have anything against the game manager. But I just find it interesting that, well, when in the beginning of his career, when Tom Brady is riding a great coach and a great defense and 3 Super Bowls, it's, well, he's Tom Brady. But then after that, when he starts throwing the ball over the place, like, see, this is why he's great. It's funny that you were brought up earlier about Brady in Super Bowl 36 being the offensive juggernaut, the Rams. Yeah, you know how they beat that offensive juggernaut? They scored 20 points, which means they held the Rams to 17. Last time I checked, Brady don't play defense. So maybe it was the defense.
Another anecdotal argument. You can call
it what you want. Am I lying? Are these not facts?
I'm not saying that you're lying. These are facts. But my point is, like, you're bringing up one game.
I brought up I got more. I brought up multiple games. Oh, I keep going. Listen, Brady has lost 2 Super Bowls where he was favored. One of them, it was a 12-point favorite. He was the quarterback, and they lost. This man has lost to Eli Manning twice. Now, of course, you're going to sit here and try and tell me how you think Eli Manning is great when I know really all of you Boston clowns will piss on his grave the day he dies. He's been outplayed. He won the game. He's been outplayed by Joe Flacco twice in the playoff game. Unfortunately, he won one of them. He lost the playoff game to Mark Sanchez. You think Joe Montana would ever lose a playoff game to like Mark Sanchez? Oh, wait a minute. You know what? Quarterbacks like Mark Sanchez don't be in the divisional playoffs because it was actually harder to play the game back then.
All right. So
he also blew a 21-3 lead in the AFC Championship game in 2006. Now, all I'm saying is, if Joe Montana did all these things, I'm pretty sure you'd be throwing them in my face.
So again, you're the historian of football, and yet you're saying that Tom Brady gave up a lead in a game, okay? Not knowing that the game is made up of offense.
I didn't say he gave up a lead. I said he didn't score enough points. That's
exactly what you just said.
No, I said he didn't score enough points.
Come on, Shawn. Don't do
listen.
Don't do that. Let me just say a couple of things.
Hold on. Before you say that, I was going to say that yelling doesn't make you right.
You brought
yelling
up
doesn't make you right.
Yeah, simmer down, gentlemen. Simmer down.
Yelling doesn't make you right.
You said that Brady hasn't worried about his knees getting rolled up on after they made that rule. Are you kidding me?
Dude, there was a game
Are
once.
you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding, because I can actually prove it. Because I remember there was a game once where someone got blocked into Brady by accident, and the defensive player rolled toward his feet by just got rolled toward his feet. And Brady starts jumping up and down, pointing at the guy on the floor. Look at the ref like, throw the flag. Because if you get near this guy's feet, it's like, oh my God. Whereas 20 years ago, that was the norm. Like I said to everyone, go look at the Joe Montana hit, the Leonard Hamilton hit on Joe Montana. Go look at the Aeneas Williams hit on Steve Young. Go look at the LeVar Arrington hit on Troy Aikman. And those last 2 hits ended those guys' careers. You can't do that nowadays. And the offensive players know it. And Belichick knows it. And that is why Belichick, being the man he is, took advantage of the rules and said, well, if you're going to make the rules like this, I'm going to change my entire offense to take advantage of this rule. And Brady is the recipient of it. Now, if you're telling me that doesn't matter, okay, if you don't know, if you think the way, if you think the offense has had different iterations with different players, but the system has not changed. Okay, if you think the offense from before 2007 and after 2007 is the same, well, next time you come to New York, I'm going to take you to this bridge I have over in Brooklyn. I'm going to sell it to you. I'll give you a good price.
Listen, all right, Darren, I'll let you respond to that, and then we're going to unfortunately have to end this round. You have less than a minute to say something. If not, then we'll just go into the closing arguments.
All right, so basically what I have to say about that is that, Shawn called his numbers pedestrian, and he said that he was system dependent. Well, the issue with that is the NFL offense is a system, and the quarterback has to execute that system and plan, point blank. There's no argument about that. So I can't sit here and say that a player is dependent on a system if that is what the name of the game is. Okay, first of all. Second of all, you said that his success is due to Belichick? Okay, that's what the name of the game is. You're making it seem like there have been tons of quarterbacks over the course of the league who have bucked their coaches' wishes and the offensive system and the offensive coordinators and gone on their own and masterminded these like awesome schemes and plays. Actually, a lot of that is like, on-field stuff. And I think people like you who think they're X's and O's guys think that audibles and things like that and last-minute throws and, all this stuff is a contingency for a great quarterback. Well, let me tell you something. Every quarterback that's ever played in the league has executed a plan, a system that was designed to beat the other team. The point of the Patriots' greatness, and by extension, Tom Brady's greatness, is that they've done that more than any other franchise in the history of the NFL. So it's an affront to your supposed knowledge about the NFL and the league, and it's an affront to option A and B listeners everywhere to make it seem like Brady is the only anomaly that's ever been in the history of the league that has been someone who, is just by chance had, the opportunity to be an elite player because,
10 seconds, Darren.
He's been a pedestrian guy. He's been a guy who's dependent on Belichick, and he's been a guy who's protected by the rules of the league. Please, GTFOH.
All right, well, all right, that is the end of Head to Head. And all right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I knew it was going to be like that. So just know that that's how it was going to go down. But this is going to be a very much anticipated closing round. And now we'll let you guys know who will go first, who will go last. Option B, Shawn, you will be going first. So you are in disagreement that Tom Brady is greater than Joe Montana, or rather his career is greater than Joe Montana's career. Go for it, sir.
Okay, in closing, my opponent originally said that he feels that he is good to make these debates because he is a sports writer. He was a former sports writer who has been in NFL locker rooms. Skip Bayless is also a former sports writer who has been in NFL locker rooms, and he is an absolute moron. So telling me that you're a sports writer in a locker room doesn't mean a damn thing to me. Mr. Sands has concentrated basically on this whole thing about me saying that he's system dependent, and he's just been whining for the last 20 minutes about he's system dependent and oh my God, wow, what do you mean he's system dependent? Like it seems to be like a sign of emotion. And don't worry, Drake loves you and he cares about you, and he'll be there to hand you a tissue. Honestly, and the funny thing is, when I said that, a major factor of not that why Tom Brady sucks, I never said he sucks, a major component of to why Joe Montana's numbers don't look as great in totality as Tom Brady's numbers according to longevity, and I mentioned the fact that the rules have changed. Mr. Sands decided to say that sports in the 80s is played exactly how it is now. And basically that it really doesn't make a difference if you change the rules because because you change the rules doesn't matter, which is one of the silliest things that have ever been said on these airwaves. The bottom line is this. As I've said before, Tom Brady is a great quarterback. Tom Brady is one of the all-time greats. Tom Brady is a Hall of Famer. Tom Brady will walk into the Hall of Fame on day one. No question about it. However, as I said before, he may be Kobe Bryant, but he's not Tim Duncan. And Tim Duncan is better than Kobe Bryant. And Joe Montana had a better career than Tom Brady. Again, when you apply this little nuance called context, and you don't look at things in black and white, you'll see that if there's not a chance in hell if Joe Montana played today under these rules, especially with illegal contact where you can't touch a receiver over 5 yards, past 5 yards, in the offense that he played in, he would crush these numbers. He completed 70% of his passes. Tom Brady's never completed 70% of his passes this season once. Joe Montana's done it. He's led the league in completion percentage 5 times. Tom Brady's only done it once. And he plays, again, with the best motherfucker you have ever seen put on a uniform when it comes to catching the ball, and Rob Gronkowski. So, I mean, I don't know what much more I have to say. Mamba out.
Hey, no, that was a very, very strong close. Option B, Shawn Hardie, a.k.a. William A. Straff. So, Darren Sands, you are option A. You are in agreement that Tom Brady's career is greater than Joe Montana's career. Darren, take us home.
Folks, I don't want to use mixed metaphors. I don't want to compare the NBA to the NFL. I don't want to bring Kobe Bryant into this argument. I don't want to do mixed metaphors. That's not my intellectual style. What I want to talk about is a young kid from Northern California. That kid went to the University of Michigan, had an unheralded, sometimes special, only sometimes, career at the University of Michigan. This is an individual who was doubted by his own coach, Lloyd Carr, the legendary Lloyd Carr, in the face of an athlete by the name of Drew Henson, who also played baseball and who, you know, a lot of people looking at them side by side said that Henson was probably the better athlete. Fine. That kid has some success. He goes on, gets drafted in the 6th round, goes on to play in his 2nd season and wins a Super Bowl, goes back 5 more times over the course of his career, and he wins 3 of them. That man's going to be 39 in a couple months. And the expectation by the fan base of that guy's team is that he's going to take us back to the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not speaking as a fan in this context. What I'm saying is that the expectation for my opponent's argument is that Joe Montana was somehow going to, you know, the expectation that he'd be a guy who was going to lead the Kansas City Chiefs to the Super Bowl at 39 or 40 or 41 or 42 is ludicrous. And that's why he retired. That's not who Brady is. Brady's a guy who's going to play for another 3, 4, 5 years, and he's going to play at an extremely high level. And the idea that people still now are calling him a system guy, a dependent guy, a guy who's dependent on Belichick or the game plan or the players around him is ludicrous. I'm offended, quite frankly, intellectually, by this idea that I came on this show with the expectation of a lucid, coherent, legible argument for Joe Montana having a better, greater career than Tom Brady. And I am flabbergasted, appalled that Shawn Hardie found it in his mind to come at me with such a feeble argument. So what I will say is that I'm looking forward to coming back on the show and debating. I appreciated the opportunity, and I thank you, option A or B.
So there you have it, folks. You have now heard both sides of option A or B on the contention. Tom Brady's career is greater than Joe Montana's career. And so what I'm asking for everyone to do now is to go to optionaorb.com and vote whether you agree or disagree. So now we're at the part of the show when I give you guys the opportunity to plug something. So Shawn, you go first. Darren, you go first since you're option A. Darren, do you have anything you'd like to plug, sir?
I like to plug my Twitter. It's at Darren Sands, DarrenSands. I will keep it there. I encourage everybody to follow Option A or B on Twitter. It's a great show, great brand, great movement.
Thank you, Darren. And just a question, do you have any particular things that you tweet about, or are you just all over the place? I'm
all over the place for the most part. I'm sports, I'm politics, I'm a little bit of everything.
You're a Renaissance man.
I'm a Renaissance man, bro.
Okay. And Mr. Hardie, a.k.a. Shawn, a.k.a. William H. Straff, do you have anything you'd like to plug, dear sir?
Well, I'm sorry. That just put me to sleep. That's what Fool's Rhetoric does to me. Yes, I'd like to plug my website, my podcast. My website is the718.com. I have a podcast which Mr. Canada has been on called This Is It. We do sports entertainment. You'll enjoy it very, very, very much. This week we actually had a 3-part series about the English Premier League season. We talk NBA, we talk NFL, we talk Major League Baseball, we talk any and everything. Hopefully, just check that out. You can go to the718.com. You can subscribe to the podcast. We're on iTunes. We're on Android. We're on Stitcher. You can use your RSS feed if you're one of those guys that's into that sort of thing. Please like our page on Facebook. It's facebook.com/718. And please follow us on Twitter at 718 _ and 718 is written as one word, all one word, not the number. So it's the word 7 and the word 18 together. You can also follow me on Twitter at William H. Straff. And I'd like to thank Chris for having me on this show today. And I look forward to returning to this show in the future.
Yes, and thank you both, Shawn and Darren. As you guys know, first off, I had to have these two guys debate each other first for their first debate, but I would love to have these guys I expect to have these guys back on for another Option A debate. So thank you, gentlemen.
If you can be found. Because it took us a month to find you the first time.
I know. I know you're so busy. You're the only person that's ever had a wife or a kid ever. So
we're just gonna end it there before these guys start making low blows in the public. I'll let these guys take low blows.
Oh, we keep it on wax, brother. We keep it on wax.
So thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, listeners.